λοιπόν εδώ στη χώρα μας η Shirin Neshat, καλεσμένη από το Εθνικό Μουσείο Σύγχρονης Τέχνης, στο οποίο μπορείτε να δείτε την καταπληκτική νέα της δουλειά που αποτελείται από 5 βίντεο προβολές. Την έχουμε απόψε εδώ κοντά μας. Είναι μια σπάνια στιγμή και για την εκπομπή μας, αλλά και για τη δυνατότητα που θα έχουμε να μοιραστούμε μαζί της σκέψεις μέσα από μια πάρα πολύ ποιητική ματιά στον κόσμο με τον οποίο ασχολείται. Welcome, Shirin.
Thank you.
To Athens, to Greece.
Thanks.
So, for the art world, our first touch with your work was in some of the biennials, first Istanbul and then Venice, where I remember that people were crying in front of your work. One of them we can see now in Athens. It's the Turbulent. And that was the beginning for you, because you became very well known since then, and your work increased a lot. So let's start from the beginning, because we would like very much to learn things about you and your life. When did you leave your country? You come from Iran.
Yes, I left in 1975. My father was very interested in having his children being educated in the West. It was very common in Iran at the time. Because of lack of university and all of that, and partially this infatuation with the Western culture. So like my other sisters and brothers, he sent me abroad, but we didn't anticipate the Islamic Revolution, so I was intended to go back, but I never went back full time. And so my other siblings went back, but I stayed.
Mm-hmm. So you're living in New York, but you never forget what happened in your country, and how is the conditions, the structure, the social structure there. Do you believe that this is the base of your work?
Well, I think I always have to insist to the people that my work is very personal, and perhaps the only reason I've become an artist is really to face my own personal issues with my country and the separation between me and my family and my place of birth. And so had it not been for this separation and the fact that I have not been able to go back, I would not have been so focused on Iranian culture. Therefore, I always have to insist that the very basis of my work is because a kind of a need to face my own anxiety as a person. And therefore, this has taken me where my inner world and questions has brought me into a dialogue, kind of a monologue going to become a dialogue, that now it's outside of just me, but the culture as a whole. And so therefore, for example, my return to Iran after 12 years of being away, it sort of woke me up and sort of interested me again in looking at my family, my culture, and then a whole body of work started. Really raising a lot of questions, not really answers. So I have to say that if anyone looks at my work outside of this personal parameter, the work would really fall short, because I'm not really an ambassador of Iranian culture or an expert or an anthropologist. And yet I'm very, very interested in the country, its political dimension and religion, all of that. But it all is driven with a personal dimension.
As far as you live in New York, in America, do you find a kind of contradiction in your thoughts and in your practice, in your art? I mean, when you think about your country and the conditions there, how do you feel living in the West and having to compose these two way of living?
It's very difficult. I feel like just in my own artwork, where it's always this idea of contradictions. For example, many aspects of my work are very violent, but also very beautiful, very spiritual, but also very political. I am, as a person, very divided in terms of extremely emotional and extremely rational, very Western, very Eastern. And I think this is an inherently reflective of the life that I live. I am a nomad. I have a foot in the West, a foot in the Middle East, and I am, for example, Iranian American, shooting in Morocco, working in Europe, and so my mindset, it's kind of polluted with Eastern and Western ideas and influences. And therefore, this somehow is reflected in the form, in the work, in the way it's conceived. But I must say that I have accepted this life and this way of thinking, and the way that my work will never be pure Iranian, that I don't really belong, or my language of art is not really authentically Iranian, but it's also not Western. It's something in between. And I think this is not just me, but it really represents a kind of genre of work by many artists who have immigrated.
When you started your work, your artistic work, we find that you participate in the works in a way through photographing yourself or playing a role like a hero in your videos in the beginning. This is something that changed after some years, or do you still insist that an artist should participate in a way in his own film?
I think the artist always participates in their work by their vision and their emotions. That, and I think my own personality is really given, and it shows in the strangest way. For example, the way I form the characters. The characters have become an extension of me, and my own fragility and my questions, my own insecurities, dilemmas, but also strength. And for the longest time, I felt that was the most honest way to communicate to the audience, is to somehow reveal a part of you and your own human anxieties, you know, and then you become very intimate with your viewer. At the beginning, I used my own body because it became a kind of a canvas, as this a kind of a dialogue about this world that I was trying to communicate about. And I felt by using my own body and flesh, it was the most intimate way. But later, I didn't want to do that anymore. And now I feel like the narratives and even the concepts, for example, the concept of exile, it's very much about topic that it sort of consumes me. So I think if the audience pay attention, they see a lot of me. Maybe no longer my body, but my personality.
I want to start with the Turbulent, and then we go on the works that we can see here in Athens. But Turbulent, I think, I have the feeling that it was a very, very important work for you. And I want to ask you, now that I meet you, why?
Well, I think it was the most successful work I've ever done in a way that I had no need for explanation. And I think this happens very rarely, that you really don't have to explain anything. The work speaks for itself. And I think fundamentally because operated in such primal, emotional, simple way to the audience. And I think, of course, much of the credit should go to the music and the power of music that really can transcend cultural boundaries. And I think it was also very precise work in a way that, again, it represented this idea of opposites. The man, the woman, the black, the white, the full theater with full audience, the empty theater, stationary camera, rotating camera, traditional music, guttural music. So all these decisions about reiterating these opposites was so concise that by no means could the audience forget what this is all about. And again, it was no longer about a judgment about who is good or who is bad. If the man, in fact, the man was wonderful in his performance. But so it really creating a kind of an opera and leaving a lot of the judgment to the viewer, you know, as they had to shift their attention. And I think it remains still one of my favorites, but also the beginning of a body of work that incorporated storytelling, a kind of the physicality of an engagement of the audience with the piece, with the video, and also using music.
For us that we came in the Venice Biennial 1999, there was you know, a big emotion and people were crying, this is true. And I think that except the part that has to do with Islam or the Quran or everything that could understand knowing the culture of your country, the main thing was that we had to do with something which was very familiar to our lives. I don't know if it has to do with a forbidden situation or a forbidden possibility to express your feelings, but I was feeling, for example, that I was a part of this story. I can understand that there are things that I cannot say also in my country, not in a political level, but maybe in a more personal level. And this is, you know, I would like your explanation on this.
Well, I think my perspective always is, as an artist, that ultimately any good work of art should be universal, meaning that the impact should go above and beyond specificities of a country and a culture. So when a work of art, in fact, is able to really focus on something very specific related to a particular place, but at some point reach a much deeper level where it really is an experience that is a common human experience, a common human emotion, then it really is successful. And I think this is always my efforts in every work that I do, that although on the surface it looks like I'm really just addressing the Iranian culture, the Islamic religion and all of that, but really at some point depart from that and really take the audience to a place where they actually identify with this experience. Now, it could be in different degrees and different forms, the way they feel connected. But certainly, for example, when I look at a film of under Tarkovsky from Russia, I completely identify with his stories and characters and the feeling of the atmosphere of the culture, and so I no longer think of it, oh, this belongs to Russia and it's not about me. And I think that is what's powerful about art, that it really can transform us and it can bring us to have something to share that is not really specific to where we come from. And maybe being an artist who no longer lives in her own country, it's a gift, because also I have an ability to see beyond the Iranian culture. And I don't think every work that I do is successful in communicating that level, but this is really my effort.
Will you help us to understand a little bit the story of this work, and then we go to the Women Without Men. But before that, let us know about the story of the Turbulent. What is going there?
I, of course, been very fascinated by the subject of women in Iran, being an Iranian woman for many years through my photographs and then by the video. I was really keen on understanding the impact of the Islamic Revolution on the woman in a way that they, in a way, become a battleground for the ideology of the government, the religion. And in a way, the woman embodied the rules of the society. And as the governments come and go, through the study of the woman, we can begin to understand the dictatorship. What I was really interested in terms of music is how women are deprived from the experience of performing or recording, experiencing an audience. So I simply thought, just musically speaking, what kind of music could we expect from a woman as opposed to a man who in fact is deprived from this right? And it was, again, a very conceptual, of course, with a kind of a sharp knife behind it, in a way, really by raising this question, also being critical. But so what I really wanted to do is really question the fact that if a person is not allowed, does not have the right to have the right with traditional music and have the right to have public performance, what can we expect from her? And obviously, then we get a music that is improvised, is without language. It breaks every rule of the music, and therefore, meaning that when a woman is against the wall, they reach toward their deepest sources to find something of an expression. And this is the most unpredictable, and in fact, it becomes most victorious because this is a music that, although is not tied to anything, it just devastates you because it becomes so guttural. And so for me, again, was to show the power of women to sort of prevail and to be able to transcend this condition and once again to be victorious regardless of their oppressive environment.
Well, we'll interrupt for some moments and then we come back to continue.